Seriously, I was exposed to all of these insecurities at such a young age and wanting validation. It was basically a slow pattern and acceleration of why I'm a sex and love addict.
Welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. Tell me your secret. I'll tell you mine. When I first started my recovery 11 years ago, I struggled through the textbook-like material on this subject. I wanted to make the addiction and the recovery from it accessible and relatable to more people by telling it in an entertaining way. Well, I'm super excited to announce I've released my first book, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict. If I can help just one person find a solution or at least realize they're not broken or alone, then writing this has been worth it. You can pick up the book exclusively at Amazon or signed copy at secretlifenovel.com. And the best way to support our podcast is to subscribe and share. If you haven't left a review or rating on Apple Podcasts yet, please do. It'll help more people find our show. And if you want to be a guest, shoot me a note at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Secret Life Podcast. I'm Brianne Davis-Gant. Today I'm pulling back the curtains of all kinds of human secrets. We'll hear about what people are hiding from themselves or others. You know those deep, dark secrets you probably want to take to your grave? Or those lighter, funnier secrets that are just plain freaking embarrassing? Really, the how, what, when, where, and why of it all. Today, my guest is Cheryl. Cheryl, what is your secret? Dun, dun, dun.
Oh God, I've got a few secrets, but the one that I think I would love to admit and no longer be a secret is, okay, first of all, it's because of you coming onto our podcast, Pretty Messed Up, a few weeks ago, and me really sitting back and observing my thoughts and thinking, you know what, I believe that, I am a sex and love addict, especially after like when I stopped drinking and I've been sober for almost 2.5 years. I think that love, I think more love, right, is my addiction. Love is addicting for me. It's like that feeling of highs and lows. And almost back in my previous relationships, I remember starting like fights and wanting to have the makeup sex and wanting to have that makeup, like just that feeling of like up and down, like I think I'm an adrenaline junkie, so because I'm such an introvert at heart that like anything just to be able to crawl out of my skin,
Oh, perfectly said. I mean, that high of falling in love and then creating drama to get that intensity hit, right? That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
that jolt to like shock us. And it's like worth living for that jolt.
Yeah. And it's scary because I'm no longer about like starting fights as much, but I recognize now that I can put words to it, but I recognize that feeling in your stomach, right? That it just makes you nauseous. And I've always said, like breakup is a best diet and it's just so unhealthy. It's like just that feeling of going back together, breaking up, coming back together. I was always in a relationship. I never stopped being in a relationship.
Oh, me too. Me too. I wasn't single
Yeah.
for, I think 6 months was the longest I was single.
Oh, wow. Yeah, same. I think around 6 to 8 months right before I got married and basically re-engaged our engagement. We've done this before, but at the end of the day, it's okay. Because I thought I was living this on my own. I thought I was really weird. I thought I was alone. I didn't know what to say. I was like a sex and love addict. No one ever brought it to my attention. And I just came to, I guess, peace with the fact that just 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I admitted that I'm an addict, in general. So that it's just a lot.
Yeah. I just had a question pop in my head. Do you think being a dancer at such a young age, because you told when we were talking, you started dancing how young were you?
4.
Do you think because as a woman, you had to like do all that sexuality with dancing at such a young age that affected this love addiction? I actually just thought of that.
Yeah, no, you're definitely on the right track. Well, let me just rewind a little bit. So my mom and dad divorced when I was 2, and my very first memory is of him being with another woman. like literally having sex with another woman at 2 years old.
Wow.
I remember this like it was yesterday. And I asked my friends and even my husband, like, what's your first memory as a kid? And it's, oh, just happy thoughts, you know? And I'm like, wow, mine's very dark. And I see here to this day, it was his secretary. And I didn't know that my mom and dad were separated, but I remember wanting to literally turn the channel to a different channel and I couldn't do it. And I was watching Sesame Street in his brown leather chair. Like I remember it as if it was yesterday. And I was like trying to get his attention and there was a crack through his door and he was full on, the woman was naked. She had long black hair, Filipino woman. He had a type and they were just going at it. And I was like, that was my very first memory. It was so traumatizing. And then after that, I didn't have a father figure until my mom started dating my stepdad now. And with him came his kid and his daughter, who's my older stepsister, and this babysitter that would basically watch over her. And he was the man that sexually molested me.
And what
then,
age were you at?
Changes every time. My timeline sucks, but it's like,
no, that's the thing. Like, when there's trauma, your timeline sucks because for me, I couldn't remember.
My book will say one age and my publicist is like, Cheryl, why do you keep switching your age?
Because I didn't even remember when my molestation happened. I was like, I think I was 5. Like your brain, my therapist told me your brain literally, when you block out trauma, it doesn't just pick trauma, it picks everything. You block out the good and the bad.
No, I know. And I'm really good at it. And I just have to catch myself to this day because it almost is, being able to write a book about it and being able to do press for the first time alone. Because on Dancing with the Stars, we always do press with our celebrities.
Yeah.
And, never did I have my own voice until like I was on Ellen talking about it and Pierce Morgan and all of these big talk shows. And I just remember feeling like I was being testified again. Right. And just testifying against my molester. But then this time it was just talking about the experience. And it was the best therapeutic, but scariest moment of my life.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a part of me that was still thinking, not any longer, but that was still thinking back when I wrote the book about 8 years ago. I was like, did I want this to happen? There's a part of me that was still blaming myself for it. And the whole point of me telling this story is because like my pattern of men, that's when it all started as far as whether it be the dance world, right? The ballroom dance world. I don't recommend it to any kids. Just kidding. But I don't, because especially women, it's just, I don't think I would ever, if we ever have kids, do not. It's just so toxic, but it's also so rewarding. It's like, you have to grow up so fast. I'm like, if you look on like my YouTube channel or Instagram, you'll see me post like throwbacks or videos talking about it. But even my husband the other night was like, you're 11 in this video. You look like you're 25.
Like all made up and all like in skimpy outfits. But it's what society puts on women. Like you have to look like that to dance. Just like if you're a model, you have to look like that and wear that and be that naked at such a young age. That had to affect that trauma. It seems like it just amplified.
It did. Absolutely. And with everything, I can just see the pattern now that you say that. Like my Filipino nanny, not that one that sexually molested me, but the other one that basically was there with me from the day I was born, but she didn't speak English. And I remember her watching Pretty Woman a lot. So I was exposed to all of these insecurities at such a young age and wanting validation. I think I've watched Pretty Woman, the only movie.
The white knight to come rescue you, or the person to come like sweep you off your feet and make it like your Richard Gere. Like that's so inappropriate for you.
And I'm a prostitute. Yeah. And like, and then it's so weird how everything relates. My father owned strip clubs in Thailand. And like, he passed away a couple years ago, but like, it's just funny how it was basically a slow pattern and acceleration of why I'm a sex and love addict.
Wow. And how did that love addiction, how did that with men, how did that grow? How did it fester? Because it's a progressive disease, it's a brain disease, they call it. Because the longer you do those patterns, the more progressive it gets.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. People don't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is actually fascinating when I really think about that. Okay. Well, I actually have a question before I answer that question. So sex and love, we've talked about this, but I want your viewers to hear it. What's the difference between sex addiction versus love addiction?
How I explain sex addiction is it's when you're addicted to a sexual act, and love addiction is when you're addicted to a specific person, or, if you, date multiple people or put back-to-back relationships, going after unavailable people, going after married people.
Okay.
flirting, intriguing, fantasy, the white knight coming to rescue, that a relationship is going to fix you. Sex addiction is when you're addicted to like porn, masturbation, cheating, massage parlors, one night stands, all that stuff. But you can swing thing to thing.
Well, I'm definitely a love addict, but like, why is it under the same roof? I mean, I get it, but I don't get it.
Yeah, no, let me explain. I'm so glad. I love that you're asking me my question on my own podcast. It makes
I'm like
me so
interviewing
excited.
you. I know, sorry.
Totally. She's going into her hosting. We're like battling hosting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so here's
Barbara
the thing.
Walters over here.
Yeah, right. Well, no, because here's what happens. You have fantasy and you find yourself attracted to this unavailable person. You put yourself out there sexually. So it's you do sexual things when you're actually not ready to do sexual things. You perform, you become a role, you put on that show that a lot of women do. And that's where the
You're
sex
like
addiction.
Disconnected, right?
You're
like
disconnected. You're not really intimate with this person. And then once you capture them, usually the sexual high goes away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with sex addiction, it's not even about the actual sex. It's about the build up to that sexual experience. It's
the same feeling of like self-sabotage, but for the self-sabotage, it's like that feeling, that high.
Yes. It's all a high. It's like shooting up heroin in your arm. And
yes.
So that's how I explain, the best way I can explain it without confusing people.
Okay. And let's go back to your question. Cause now that I have a clear picture, go ahead.
How did yours amplify? How did it progress? How do you see that pattern in your life?
So as I said, I was very introverted, right? So like in the ballroom world, it's a very small world. It's a man's world. And I would be around and my environment was of older people. So my friends were in their 30s, boys, men and women. And my mom was busy trying to put food on the table and worked her ass off as, a new business owner. Right. So like a lot of people may say, well, it's because of the way you were raised. Actually, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for my mother. Right. So like at the end of the day, yeah, you can blame it all you want, but when everything starts with you, and I actually don't have any regrets in that sense. Like, I think that it shaped who I am today. And I was very scared to say no. And I was taken advantage of because of that.
So that's interesting. I just want to pause right here. That's interesting. At such a young age, you were already like denying your intuition, your voice to say no.
Even if I was scared.
Yeah. But as women, I think that's important that you're a powerful woman in the industry right now. And people look up to you, that you even denied your intuition, that voice that said, no, I don't want to do this, but you did it anyways.
Because I wanted to please in a way. It was really weird. It wasn't I didn't love myself. I didn't love myself till just recently. And I think that until that happens, hopefully it's instilled in you when you're a teenager or a kid and you have great role models. But for instance, I got my period when I was 9 years old. I went through growing up and my body changing at such a young age. And I just didn't fit into my age category, not at all. And the way I danced and the way I communicated and interpreted my feelings would be through movement. And so that was just very sexual. I was always very sexual, not because of me being sexual. Like I would be the person standing in the corner. Like I wasn't, I had social anxiety, but when I danced, it was like another person came out of me.
Yeah.
And it became very sensual and sexual. And that's why I would attract all these disgusting, but it's all these older men,
But
and
that's
it's like
the thing, like that's where society is messed up. Like I even had experiences as a really young girl I developed, and I remember walking through the mall and this old man was like hitting on me, my father's age. And I was like, I'm 12 years old. What are you doing? And
you said that?
No, in my head, but in my head, of course I didn't have a voice at that young. I just like, but
yeah,
that had to be very hard, that just because you were in this world and you were expressing yourself and your sexuality was coming out, people took advantage of that or made you uncomfortable or whatever, blah, 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 put something underneath that,
And that to me, like getting that attention, that equals love for me, right? Because if you think back when I got sexually molested, it wasn't like we had intercourse. It was very much a grooming type of molestation and over a long period of time. And so it was like the grooming of it brainwashed me. I think that's even more scarring sometimes than the actual act.
Yeah.
Because like I still catch myself. Like I need to understand that.
Did you feel like that person loved you? Like it was
yes,
in your mind.
That's why it was the hardest.
you manipulated your own mind to think, oh, this person cares about me.
And by the way, that's the age to do it when you want to brainwash somebody, right? It's like at those valuable moments of your life when you're just a toddler, really, and you don't know anything else. And that's the scariest part. And that for me is like, yes, trauma. I'm not comparing or saying one is worse than the other.
They're
at the
all
end of the
bad.
day,
It's
all bad. But there's something about grooming that really makes me sick to my stomach, because it's a full on showing you as a little girl that this is what it is, because you have nothing else to see. You don't have a role model as far as like your parents still being together. And then in a way, he made me feel guilty for even testifying. That was the hardest part, was me testifying and looking at him, like looking straight at him. And then finally realizing he's done this to so many of his nieces and nephews, and it just continued going, and then like, even when he went to my dad's dental practice, he got out of jail when he was like in his late 90s. And he said, like, I never did that to your daughter. And then this is where I became, where I was able to start the process of forgiveness, because it wasn't forgiveness for him and what he did, but it's forgiveness for myself. But then also realizing that this man was so sick, like he was mentally sick and like ill, and like he should have not necessarily gone to prison. He should have gone to like a rehabilitation center or somewhere where, like, yes, prison, absolutely, but like he shouldn't have been let go like just freely like that either, but he really doesn't believe he did this.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is this I even talked to my therapist about it, because I mean, I'll just tell this story real quick. But one day I was at a meeting for sex and love addiction, and this gentleman came in and he started talking about being attracted to his daughter's friend, who was like 16 years old, he said, and every woman's hand shot up in the room. And then when you raise your hand, it means stop talking. Like, imagine 50 people and all the women shoot their hands up. God. And we're like, no, stop. Enough.
Did you?
Oh yeah. I was like, done. You can't talk like that in this room. And I talked to my therapist about it, and I'm like, what gives somebody, like, what is that? And she says it's a sexual perversion, that they want to take the purity of this young, innocent person because they think it's love, and they'll never grow out of it. It's not something you can cure. When someone is,
I mean, it must have taken him so much to say that, though.
Oh, I'm sure. And I have compassion for him, but there's a time and a place to take that to, not in a room full of 100%. Women, that are triggered.
Totally. And mind you, I this, but I don't go to like or what's it called?
Yes. So I love this. So, let's just say this out loud. Yeah. You are not a 12-stepper. You got sober through
I believe in it, though. I love it. Yes. And intense therapy that I'm still currently doing. And it's like, double sessions twice a week. Not cheap, too. Not cheap. It's my mental health.
But hey, but listen, I love when people come on and say, I didn't do the 12-step, I did the therapy. I had a good friend that was also in Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, and it didn't work for her. She had to just do therapy. I had to do therapy in both, but I just love that you got sober, you've stayed sober. Now you're coming out as a sex and love addict. And the point is, you're doing the work on yourself to get
look, I'm not against the program at all. I think I'm fighting the battle. That another secret I have, I'll just tell you all my dirty secrets.
Yay!
I have social anxiety, and I just realized that after things have been loosening up here, even though I still think people should stay home if you're not vaccinated, but whatever. That's a whole other conversation. But basically, I cannot, the thought of being in public around people that I don't know frightens the crap out of me.
I think it frightens a lot of people. I mean, it frightens me too. I just got my first shot, and I'm still nervous. Even when somebody comes near me and they don't have on a mask, I'm like, what?
No, I know, but mine is just people in general. It's so weird. It's like, I've always gotten this like note, especially like Leah Remini, I told you earlier, is a good friend of mine, and she's the opposite of social anxiety. And when like I would hang out with her and like her good friend, it's like I get really weirdly introverted, and then I start to like have that mean voice in my head. So I think I just want to surpass all of that by just not going out.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. Do you think the social anxiety comes from, being an addict, using alcohol to like, because all of that was easier to drink or flirt or whatever you did?
I think it goes way past before that. So I didn't even drink till I was 21, right? So even during that time when I would encounter lots of, sexual abuse really, and relationships that were very both physically and mentally abusive. I was very much an introvert. Like, you should see my very first audition tape to do Dancing with the Stars. My voice sounds so mousy. Like, I am pretty monotone as it is now, but I couldn't put two words together in front of a camera. Like, the anxiety just, and also because of the ballroom world, it's a man's world. No one cared about the women's opinion about anything. So like, we weren't activated as far as that part of our brain goes to think quick on our feet and to speak up for whatever you believe in. Like, I didn't even know what I believed in. Didn't know my favorite color when I moved here, like, actually.
Yeah. No,
so, like,
that makes sense. That totally makes sense. And then I'm hitting on, like, you already shy. I was shy. And being a shy person, we're usually very sensitive. And I'm an addict and you're an addict. So you're already sensitive. And, the low self-esteem, the fear of abandonment.
But it doesn't look like that, right?
No, but that's why our masks are so nice. You put on a mask, that's what my therapist says. You have a mask on top of a mask on top of a mask, and you're so detached from your real self.
And that's what, like, my husband and I are working on in couples therapy, is just vulnerability in general. It's such a huge word, right? But like, it's not necessarily ego. It's just my own insecurities of, like, still protecting myself.
Yeah.
And not wanting to come across weak. My wall was so thick and it's so tall, and it's like, it's going to take a lot of work. And that's what we're working through. And it's so crazy to this whole time. And also because of the culture that I was raised in. My mother's Filipina, and Filipina community, at least, is like very much not to show your feelings, not to show that you're crying. Every time I would cry, I'd be like, don't do that. Like, and so vulnerability was not necessarily strength but it takes so much strength to be vulnerable.
I think it takes more strength to be vulnerable than to be like a wall.
Absolutely.
Because now it hurts. It actually hurts me sometimes. Like, my body physically hurts when I'm vulnerable, where I'm like,
interesting.
Oh, when I have to say I'm sorry, it's like someone is like, every part of me doesn't want to say I'm sorry, even though I need to say I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, you do that too? It's like so
Oh my
hard.
God. I actually, like, there's obviously, I talked to you about, like, our dog is getting old and all of that. And like, I'm trying to be as mindful as possible, to be very sensitive and towards, my husband and like what he's going through. Cause it's been him and his dog Bear for so many years. And it's like, on a normal day, just like not think about what I would say before I say it, like, that's just what happens when you're together for so long. And now it's so hard for me to really be like putting his
needs and his emotions.
That's a whole nother thing, man.
Do you think did you do the thing with your sex and love addiction where you would say those things to, like, not hurt someone's feelings, but it, like, kept a distance between you and that person? Like, you would almost self-sabotage and say that stuff.
But mind you, when I was sober, I wouldn't be able to go on a date, or I wouldn't be able to do a red carpet. I wouldn't be able to, the only thing I could do sober in front of people would be dancing. That's the only thing I could do.
Wow.
But as far as flirting or like talking about my real feelings, can't do it. And I wouldn't want to. Like, that was the scariest thing of my life. But when I was drunk and using and all of that, I can't even imagine what I said. But it would always be the next morning, I'd be so embarrassed because, like, someone would say, do you know what you said to so-and-so, like big, important people. I'm like, no, I don't want to know it, actually, because it's probably really crazy. But maybe then a part of me is like, is that true? That saying, like, a drunken man's words is a sober man's thoughts type thing. I don't know. Totally. I think it's just exaggerated, maybe.
No, I think it's the truth. I think the truth comes out when you have some of that, just to, like, let the stuff that's been building up.
Yeah. It's like it's like an ego thing that I don't necessarily like. I don't like that person, like, I don't, and I also don't like the feeling of not remembering, because I'm such a I'm also a recovering
control addict.
Yeah. Yep.
Ding, ding. I am too.
To control everything. Yeah. Well, we're just the same person.
I know we have we love power and control over other people, because inside I feel like, because I feel so powerless in this world, that I have to, like, dominate others. So I feel like I can't get hurt. No one can hurt me if I have power and control over everything in my life.
But what's so crazy is that feelings come and go. Like, if we can just sit in our feelings and feel our feelings, it would just only take a few seconds, or maybe a few minutes, or maybe a few days. It doesn't matter, but it's so short term that the feeling, once you feel it, goes away. It doesn't come back to haunt you. Instead, I've been a master at just not feeling my feelings and numbing, that is even worse. Like you can't compare the length of time. Like it'll just consistently eat you alive.
It does. That's the secret. Like holding in your feelings kills you. But as an addict, we don't want to feel anything other than elation or ecstasy. I'm not interested in feeling pain and sadness. I'm just not interested in it. And you have to get comfortable with feeling your feelings. I totally agree.
What's fascinating to me is that with you, you didn't use a substance.
No, I didn't use a substance at all. I just used people completely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so fascinating. Like, I think we're all addicts, but I don't want to.
Well, I say we all have an ism. No, I do. I believe.
I agree.
I believe people will find like shopping, money, gambling, eating, not eating. Everybody has an ism that they go to not feel
controlling. Yeah, just controlling. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But like, that's a heavy subject.
No, we could talk all day. I would literally talk to you all day, but I know you have other things to do. But I do want to hit you and I discussed something. And I think it's really important that as coming as sex and love addict and recovery that you've been in, you also had a problem with social media. And I have had a huge problem with social media. So I just want to touch base on that and how you're working through that and how it's affected you.
So, I mean, some can just say it's probably because of the outside validation I've been yearning for my whole life, clearly from, not having a stable family and growing up in the dance world. It's all about that, right? Like it's all about who wins first place through sixth place, who makes the semifinals, who makes, who's top 24 in the world. It's so right. Like it's like now that I've done a lot of work, I'm thinking, what is first? What is second? Like at the end of the day, it's so unhealthy and it's so toxic.
Unhealthy.
And I now understand the mentality of Olympians who literally work. I mean, that's basically what I was, right? But in more of an engaging way, it with us literally dry humping each other. Like that's what I did. And I went through lots of different partners, some were gay, most were straight. I was in a relationship basically with most. Mm-hmm. And it was a constant up and down roller coaster. And what was your question?
No, but the social media, it hits on that.
Why did I say social media?
No, wanting validation. And being in the dance world. And when you have, number one, number two.
No, but that's why. Yeah. It's like, I'd wait for my dance coach. I'll never forget, never did he ever say a compliment. And I think that has a lot to do with my teaching style that you see to this day on Dancing with the Stars. I'm hardcore, but that's all I know because that to me is love, but it's not necessarily love. It's very much, that it's just that if he said something great, I couldn't take it. Right. So I can't take compliments sometimes. Yeah. And I'm learning how to do that. But then when you go on social media and you don't really know these people and you see comments, hundreds and hundreds of comments, all you do is focus on the negative, then that is your clue to get the hell out. Because I think it has nothing to do with the people. It always starts with you first, always. Yeah. And it's stop with the blaming, take responsibility. And so I did. And so I literally, everything you see on my platforms, on my social platforms, they do come from me, but I do have to hire somebody to actually go on the actual platform and post it because I can get sucked in and then what? And then what?
It's for me. Yeah. I'm
human, Yeah. And for me to say, oh, I don't compare, or I'm recovering from my addiction with social media in a way, or validity is just bullshit. It's not true. That's another thing. It's just if you don't feel good when you do something, stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I just want to hit on the last thing. The last little secret is now that you're using your social media for something with purpose. You have been speaking out about what's going on. And that's when I switched to using it for helping people with sex and love addiction. It's helped me deal with the social media anxiety or the likes and all that. How is now speaking out for everything that you're doing?
Yeah. So basically, the Asian culture right now in general, to say that I'm not living in fear would be a lie. The fact that I won't even walk my dog, right now because like just recently someone screamed some sort of comment at me, and like it honestly, and then to see, you know, the Asian community, we're not in the general, it's just the way that we were raised as well, but the stigma is changing, but it's like to express feelings isn't easy for us. And we also will not let it stop us from living our lives as well. So, and then to hear every day, like a vulnerable, elderly, you know, of Asian descent woman will get knocked down just for walking to church, like a Filipina woman, 65 years old, my mother's age, just minding her own business in New York, walking to church. And this guy literally punches her and kicks her.
And nobody does anything. And it makes me so sick to my stomach. Like I just want to pounce on him like a cat and like tear him.
Right. And I never thought this would ever happen. And to feel like a foreigner in your own country is just it just makes my skin crawl. And I just, every time my mom calls me, right, like she's very vulnerable. She's blind in one eye, you know, she's 67 almost. And my stepdad is always busy working. So she runs errands and stuff. Like my heart drops every time I get a phone call because I just do not, and I hope and pray that, you know, she hasn't been hurt, and my heart just goes out to everybody. But as far as social media goes, I have to use my voice. The fact that the people, I feel like there was a part of me that was like, maybe I don't need to say anything, right? Like, I just need to like, that's not who, I'm not a political like protester. I don't do that. Right. But like this really hit close to home. And I feel like we are going to continue the stigma, right, if we don't speak up. And so it all starts with you. And at the end of the day, I can't look at social media and just, you know, look, I can just state some facts. I've lost a lot of followers. I have lots of people being negative and saying, you know, certain things that I could easily clap back at. But like, this is not why I am on social right now. I'm on social to use my voice and my platforms to influence and to be a good influence and to educate. There's so many ignorant people out there right now, which is why this is happening. Is if we can all just educate and lead with love, then I think that is the start. It starts with you. Yes. And so I'm not going on social media as much to look at comments more than use the social platform that I have to turn it into a positive by continuing to spread more information and post as much as I can. So people who do want to watch it or who are curious, but don't want to show their friends that they're curious or whatever, can actually go to my social platform, you know, at Cheryl Burke on Instagram and just see what's been going on. Because like, if you don't know what's going on, you can easily judge. What we're trying to educate.
We're all human, and there's empathy and compassion, and that we all have the same blood in our veins. And I love that poster that it just shows, if you need an ounce of blood from the Red Cross, you don't know who it came from. So we are all the same. And I love that
we are
your platform. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud to know you. And I'm proud that you came out as one of my fellow sex and love addicts, and you're on the other side of it. So thank you so much for coming on. I know we went way over.
Oh my God. I could talk to you. Like, we should do a marathon.
I know, right? We should do a 24-hour podcast.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming on. If you want to be on the show, please email me at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Until next time. Thanks again for listening to the show. Please subscribe, rate, share, or send me a note at secretlifepodcast.com. And if you'd like to check out my book, head over to secretlifenovel.com or Amazon to pick up a copy for yourself or someone you love. Thanks again. See you soon.